We do want to bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross. He, of course, has been watching the storm yesterday. Brian, we still have a day of tracking this thing. It could make additional landfalls through the Bahamas.
Yeah, whether the center technically goes between the islands or not, that's an open question. And this is a very interesting discussion you were having there, Marissa and Stephen, the question of exactly how strong Melissa was yesterday. That has yet to be analyzed. I'll show you a stat here after I take a look at what's going on right now, and we can discuss that a little bit at the end. All right, 105 mile an hour top winds now is the estimate from the National Hurricane Center as of the 8 a.m. Eastern Time advisory. Pressure up, pressure comes up. Storm is getting weaker over the landmass of the eastern island of Cuba, obviously, and you can see it's much more ragged there on the satellite, but it still has a healthy circulation. You can also see that the clouds are kind of spreading out in this direction. That's because the upper level winds are picking the storm up and going to move it through the Bahamas. So it will be accelerating as it moves through the Bahamas and in the general direction of Bermuda, but they're also stretching out the clouds and the bands. So it's not going to be a balanced storm like it was yesterday when it hit Jamaica. And here you see the track. Here was this very slow movement, remember, and then it got to here, and then was it going to turn north like it was supposed to? Well, then it did, but it actually, if you look at the kind of net of it, it was relatively smooth in an arc going up like this, but the details counted so much. That little wiggle before it made landfall there, that accounted for the fact that it went left of Black River, so it piled all the water into the Black River and Treasure Beach area, where it looked like it might wobble to the right of that. And then when it got further north, it kind of wobbled left near Montego Bay, and then kind of hung a right and pushed over to where Robert Ray was in St. Ann Parish. So just the little wobbles back and forth that all hurricanes do that are moving relatively slowly and encountering mountains accounted for a lot of the impacts that we saw there yesterday. And now again, wobbling over Cuba before it kind of picks up and will take a relatively straight path, I think, once it gets over the water again. Here, looking close up, here you can see the Bahamian Islands involved. Exuma is on the edge to the north. Great Inagua is on the edge to the south. Turks and Caicos on the edge down here. Those are the islands in between in the southeastern central Bahamas that are going to be affected more directly by the hurricane. So here it is, the early pictures here. You see it still has a circulation, but notice there's no real core here. The taller cloud tops are way out in here, and they're not really very organized. That's the disruption of the Jamaican mountains, and the higher terrain over eastern Cuba has been responsible for that. But the winds have been over 100 miles an hour, some spots here near the southern Cuban coast as it came ashore. All right, so here's what the National Hurricane Center is estimating in terms of the size of the storm. In this yellow area is where tropical storm force winds are. Now, not everywhere in here, but they calculate that in each quadrant of the storm, so it's not the quadrants the way the storm is moving like this, it's the quadrants like this. So in the northeast quadrant, they figure the tropical storm force winds extend out as far as that. Not everywhere in there, but somewhere in there they have, by using aircraft or other kinds of calculations based on data on the ground, figured that's about where they extend out. And the same thing on every other quadrant of the storm, noticing that the northwest quadrant and the southwest quadrant are much smaller. The storm is stretching out toward the northeast as those upper level winds kind of stretch it out. So it's moving into the northeastern central Bahamas right now, but the hurricane force gusts are still over Cuba. Hurricane force sustained in this red area here right near the center. All right, so here we are, 8 a.m. Eastern Time this morning. Let's go forward in time, and here we are till 2 o'clock this afternoon. Notice the hurricane force winds from about Long Island, southern part of Long Island, the Long Island in the Bahamas, and on down past Acklands, but not including the Inaguas down here. Mayaguana, which is a not very populated island, but it's a Bahamian island, is going to be close to the gusts, and here's where the core is going to go through. like I said, it looks like the southern part of Long Island, Crooked Island, and Acklands. It's going to be right in there. Ragged Island also getting some of that kind of activity, but on the left side of the storm. Then it kind of quickly accelerates as it moves forward. So by 2 o'clock this afternoon, it's a little bit weaker. It goes through as a Category 3 to moving toward Category 2 in the slightly more hostile upper-level winds. And by 2 a.m., it should be gone here by this evening, 2 a.m. So moves through this afternoon into this evening, and then it is gone overnight. And because of all that, they have the hurricane warnings up for the Bahamas there, the central and the southeastern Bahamas. What they do in the Bahamas is they divide the Bahamas into 3 parts: the northwestern, central, and the southeastern. And so they put up warnings for an entire part. They don't do it island by island. So even though pretty sure that Cat Island is going to be out of it, it's part of the central Bahamas, so it gets the hurricane warning. Notice Nassau and Eleuthera, also Grand Bahama, Great Abaco are not in this and not affected. So if you're planning a vacation to Nassau or to Grand Bahama or somewhere up there, it's not going to bother your vacation. On the wider view, you see the Turks and Caicos are on the fringe, so tropical storm warnings. Haiti still with a tropical storm warning because of the outer bands on that side. I mean, this may be as big a disaster as what happened in Jamaica when we get all done with this, and still the hurricane warning's in effect here for eastern Cuba. All right, and then it moves on and it gets up to near Bermuda. The track has shifted a little bit to the left, but the storm is going to expand. And remember, the cone is only where the center is forecast to be, not the size of the storm. So the storm will be much bigger than the cone at that point. So just a hurricane watch, meaning hurricane conditions are possible. This Friday a.m. means kind of in the middle of the night. Friday morning, so Thursday evening into very early Friday is when it would be coming by in Bermuda. Of course, they're kind of ready for that. All right, so what happened yesterday? There was the eye of the storm as it was over New Hope on the infrared satellite. This is where the strongest winds were. You see that kind of an orange band about right in there. So you can see it was driving water into Black River, Treasure Beach. We also have seen lots of flooding from storm surge down at Alligator Pond, it's called. The city of Mandeville is way up in the mountains, 2,000 feet up in the mountains, but the rain rushing through there in that, the outer core, let's say, of the hurricane right there. So this is what moved on through. The official stats, of course, were the landfall time at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Jamaica time near New Hope, Category 5, 185. So this is the question: what was the wind speed of the storm as it was coming ashore? There are a variety of ways that we get that. Excuse me. One way is, of course, that they fly the aircraft through there and they measure the winds, but they're measuring on lines going through the storm, and they multiple aircraft do this. So this wasn't just one time, one check, and 185 is what they convinced themselves it was. They also have instruments that look down at the ocean and estimate the wind speed from the way the ocean is affecting the water, and that is called SFMR. It looks like the radiation coming up from the water, actually, and that has proved to be kind of inaccurate, and that's why we don't use it so much these last couple of years. But it indicated higher winds, which will be an interesting examination. And we have ways of looking at the satellite, both manually and with computers, and estimating how strong the storm is. Well, the computer analysis estimated it at 215 miles per hour, which is the strongest that the computer analysis system that was developed at the University of Wisconsin actually ever measured in any storm. And so it puts a real question mark on exactly how strong the storm was. Just visually looking at it, it was as incredible as any hurricane you could ever see. And it reminded me of Hurricane Patricia, which was in the Pacific, the strongest hurricane ever measured, 215 miles per hour. So there's going to be a lot of post-storm analysis here. And I just present all that to say that it may very well be that when this analysis is done, this storm is the strongest hurricane ever to make landfall. Not the strongest storm on the planet ever to make landfall. That would have been typhoons in the Pacific, but strongest hurricane ever to make landfall. We'll see. It's going to take some months into next year, I think, before we have that final analysis.
Even getting, Marissa was mentioning it too, and we got to go. We're going to have you at the top of the hour again, Brian, but even mentioning some of those flight level winds that were clocked with the drop sounds, just incredible that they were in excess of 240 miles an hour. So much more ahead. Appreciate that analysis. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross.